Hi guys, welcome back. If you haven't already, make sure you grab your multiplying fractions notes worksheet because today you're going to be reviewing on how to multiply fractions. We'll begin with something simple as just, having a numerator and denominator fraction, and then we'll move into multiplying mixed numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and move down to the simple fractions portion. It says in order to multiply simple fractions, you first must multiply the numerators together. So let's go ahead and put numerators. Okay, in order to get your new numerator, and then you will multiply the denominators together. In order to get your new denominator. You always want to make sure that your final answer is then simplified. All right. Now, if we're going to move on to multiplying with mixed numbers, it's a little bit different. Your first step is going to be different. Your first step with multiplying mixed numbers is to change each number into an improper fraction. Hopefully you remember how to do that, but if not, it's always just bottom times the whole plus the top. Okay, then your next step, if possible, you'll want to cross cancel, or I call it cross simplifying or simplifying early, but you just look directly across or diagonal from each of the fractions to see if something can simplify early. That way you can multiply smaller numbers instead of larger numbers. Okay, and then it says, lastly, you will multiply the numerators and the denominators as described above. You always want to make sure you're in simplest form. Okay, something else that is a reminder on here is that you want to remember that you can turn a whole number into a fraction by adding a 1 as the denominator. So for example, they give you 4 is equal to 4 over 1. So if you had, 563, that would be equal to 563 over 1 if you needed to change it to a fraction. If you had 2,347, it would be just 2,347 over 1. Or, just 72 is just 72 over 1. Any of those will be just fine, but just make sure that the denominator is a 1 whenever you are needing to change a whole number to a fraction. Okay, let's go ahead and move up. Oh, the phrase. I got to tell you guys about that. So actually, Mrs. Solberg is the one that told me about this phrase. You will have to, if you want to, you can remember this phrase and you'll always know how to multiply fractions. So it's multiplying fractions, no big problem. Top times top and bottom times bottom. And you'll hear us probably sing it throughout the day every time we have to multiply fractions. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the practice on the back. So if we go to the back here, we're going to do some simple fractions first. Okay, and I'm going to rewrite these problems too just so that you can see just a little bit bigger. All right, so we first have 2/3 times 3 over 7. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and multiply these first as top times top, bottom times bottom, just so that you can see the result. So if we look here, we're going to get 6 over 21 because I did 2 times 3 gives me 6 and 3 times 7 gives me 21. Now, my final answer isn't simplified, so I'm going to go ahead and simplify this. I know that the number or the value of 3 can go into both of those values, so I'm going to divide them both by 3, and it gives me a value of 2 over 7. So my final answer would be 2 over 7. Now, previously in your notes, I talked to you guys about cross canceling or simplifying early. So I'm going to rewrite the problem just so that you can see it both ways. This will be the other way of doing it. So when I see 2/3 times 3 over 7, I want to look at the fractions that are diagonal from each other. So if I look 2 and 7, those two don't have a value that can go into them or it can't be simplified. But if I look 3 and 3 can. The number 3 can go into 3. So I'm actually going to divide both of these values by 3 since 3 can go into both of them. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 3 divided by 3 over here is 1. So now I'm just going to do my new value, which is just 2 times 1, which equals 2, and then 1 times 7, which equals 7. So that gives me an opportunity to multiply by smaller numbers versus larger numbers and then having to simplify at the end. Either way, if you get 2/7, I'm totally okay with it. Just make sure you remember to simplify. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next one. We have 5 over 6 times 3 over 11. If I do that, I get 15 over 66. And then I notice that it's not simplified. I see actually that the number 3 can go into both of these as well. So I will divide both of these by 3, and I get a value of 5 over 22. Now, if you wanted to do it another way, you could do, it's not 6. You could do a value of 5, 6 times 3 over 11, and you can do that cross simplify early or cross cancel early. So 5 and 11 can't be simplified, but the 3 and the 6 can. So if I look, I know that the value 3 can go into both 3 and 6. So I will divide both of these by 3, and I get a value of 1 here. And for this one, I get a value of 2 after I divide it by 3. So I'm going to do now 5 times 1, which is 5, and 2 times 11, which is 22. And that's why I get the same value as I did before. So, like I said before, either way is going to work. Just make sure you simplify. Okay, now the next two problems have mixed numbers in them. So they're going to need a little bit more space because your first step, if you remember, is to change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now to do that, you're going to have to do bottom times the whole plus the top. So I'm going to do 3 times 3 plus 2. That's then going to give me a value of 11 over 3. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the 4.5. Okay, bottom times the whole plus the top. That's going to give me 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9 over 2. Now, you keep the denominator that they already had, which is why it was 11 over 3, because 3 was the denominator, and 9 over 2 because 2 was the denominator. So then I'm going to have the problem of 11 over 3 times 9 over 2. So I could do this, and I get a value of 99 over 6. I know that, once again, the value of 3 can be divided into both of those or simplified by 3, and I get 33 over 2. Okay. If you wanted to, you could have cross-simplified or cross-canceled early. Okay, the 2 and the 11 cannot, but the 3 and the 9 can. The value of 3 can go into both of those. So if I divide them both by 3, I get a 3 instead of a 9 and a 1 instead of a 3. So then I will do 11 times 3 is 33, and 2 times 1 is 2. So I like that one because I think it's easier to multiply by smaller numbers. But then I'm going to go ahead and change this improper fraction back into a mixed number because it was given to me as a mixed number. So when I do this, I'm going to do 33 is inside the box and 2 is on the outside. Whatever number is on top goes inside, and then that's the dividend, and 2 is the divisor, which is on the outside. So 2 can go into 3 once. Okay, and I multiply and subtract. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Bring down my 3. Okay, 2 can go into 13 6 times, which is 12. Minus that is 1. So since I'm changing this into a mixed number, and I have no other numbers to bring down, my 1 that I have left over as the remainder is going to be the numerator. So 16 is the whole number. My 1 that I have left over is going to be the numerator, and my divisor, or what I'm dividing by, is going to still be the denominator. So my final answer is 16.5. All right, let's go ahead and do the last one. We have mixed numbers again, so we have to change these both into improper fractions. So in order to do that, I have to do bottom times the whole plus the top. Okay, when I do that, I get 15 over 8 for this one, and then for this one, I get 23 over 4. Just a reminder, whatever your denominator is what your denominator should be on your improper fraction as well. So now I will do 15 over 8 times 23 over 4. And then if you notice already, unfortunately, we can't simplify early. I can't think of a number that can go into both 4 and 15, and 8 and 23 can't be simplified early either. So that means off to the side, I'm going to have to figure out top times top, bottom times bottom with the numbers that I'm given. So off to the side, I'm going to do 23 times 15. So when I do that, I have 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 1 is 11. I cross off my 5, and since I'm moving place values, I'm going to bring down my 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to add them together because I add the products together. 5 plus 4 and 3. So now my numerator is 345 and my denominator is 32. Since I was given a mixed number, I'm going to go ahead and make sure my answer is in a mixed number. So I'm going to simplify that improper fraction by dividing it. 345 is the dividend, it's the one that falls inside the box, and then 32 is the divisor, or what I'm dividing by. 32 can't go into 3, but 32 can go into 34, so I'm going to put a 1 on my on the 4 from my 34. I noticed that some of you guys put your X's when it can't go in there. That's fine, you can do that too. So 1 times 32 was 32. Minus that is 2. Bring down your next number, which is 5. 32 can't go into 25, so I'm going to put a 0 above my 5. 32 times 0 is 0. So when I subtract, I still have 25 left. So 25 is going to be the remainder, but since I'm changing it into a mixed number, 25 is going to be the numerator, while what I'm dividing by is my denominator. 10, or the number that I got up here, is what is my whole number. And then there is no number that can go into 25 and 32, so my final answer is 10 and 25 over 32. All right, make sure you get your notes checked by your teacher, and then you guys should be ready to go ahead and do the activity.